Hi everybody, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. Approximately a week and a half or so ago, I brought you a video about what changes to expect when classic Stormwind rolls around. That city has undergone a dramatic transformation over the years, and the same can be said of Orgrimmar, if not more so, as this city hasn't just received changes, but has literally been rebuilt. On the live servers, we can see how imposing the gates are. On the classic servers, we have a slightly different vibe to it. Now, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't like to rock up here with my bow and arrow and have a crack at it, but we have different materials. Instead of iron, we have wood and stone. It's protecting itself, but not going OTT. I mean, Valley of the Strength right now, it's so austere, it's so imposing. The claustrophobic nature of it is very apparent indeed. Muted colours, lots of iron, lots of spikes, lots of blood red. This really suited the Garrosh Hellscream Warchief reign. But back in Classic, he wasn't the war chief, it was Thrall, and he had a very different attitude to altogether. And so when you rock up to the Valley of Strength on Classic, you're going to be welcomed by this open area and some very nice colours. You've got your reds and your browns and your oranges and your greens. It's very inviting indeed, and the open spaces make you feel welcome as well. The Horde isn't slap bang in the middle of it either. No, quite dramatically different. We have a bank, a very small bank. And then at the side where all the little buildings are crammed as close as they possibly can be to one another, there just aren't any. It's just you and the mountainside. It really kind of typified the attitude of the Horde back then. Not looking for conflict, but ready in case it came. Where the live version is clearly just built for war. I mean, that's what Garrosh really wanted. Even the entranceway going through to Valley of Spirits is just really imposing in itself. And then even just moving internally in Orgrimmar into the drag, you've got those massive spikes dangling down from this iron gate, which now leads vertically up. But in Classic, no, absolutely not. The atmosphere within the place is so very different indeed. It's quite compelling, to be honest with you. And yes, the current version of the game has lovely graphics and they all look nice and high def and all that kind of stuff. But with Garrosh now out of the way, and Blizz themselves saying now that Garrosh is gone, expect to see Orgrimmar go through some changes, it would be nice to see more of a return back to this kind of Orgrimmar. I think it's fantastic. Even the tower where you can have your flight paths just looks like more of a beacon of hope than an imposing statue slap bang in the middle of the valley. And then if we scan across to the entranceway into Valley of Spirits, look! It's as welcoming, as an inviting as you could possibly want. Not even a scrap of an imposing gateway. And then through to the drag. Yeah, there's a gateway, but there's no spikes heavily falling down upon your head or anything like that whatsoever. So let's jump back to Valley of Spirits now. And on the live servers, this place is a cluttered mess. It's just disgusting. You've got the goblins thrust into one corner, stinking up the place and polluting it. You can see in the bottom left hand corner some of the oil from their stinky machines coming through. At least the trolls have managed to push themselves a little bit deeper and carve themselves out a little bit of the Echo Isles here in Orgrimmar itself. And then of course the back gate. But if we flick to the classic version of what you're going to see of this area, oh my goodness me, this is actually where the goblins are. We have the training area here, we've got a nice little bit of water, and we've got some stepping stones. It's a very inviting place to come. And even the area that the Darkspear have set up home in, because that wasn't really the case for Orgrimmar then. Look, just look at all the space here. Again, the classic version of Orgrimmar was all about open areas and very inviting and very spacious. And then the back gate actually looks relatively similar to how it is now. Blizzard haven't done too many changes with that. It's a frontal assault of Orgrimmar. And then we go into the drag. And again, we see the new architecture that Garrosh brought. The spikes in the building on the right-hand side. And its very austere, stony look. And then as we go deeper in, again, it feels a little bit more cluttered. Although this is one of the most open areas, I think, of the current version of Orgrimmar. All the buildings seem very tight to one another. I do think there's a bit of a compression vibe to it. And then this is the gateway that looks through to Valley of Wisdom. And there's a bit more verticality, of course, on the live version of the game. Not much verticality at all in Classic. But if we jump to that now, look, the spiked building is just a regular building back here. And yes, it does retain a lot of its aesthetic, but even here, the area feels a lot more open. Sure, it's not as detailed and stuff, but at least you feel you can breathe. And then we have the gateway which looks through to the Valley of Wisdom, which we'll look at in a moment, which is very different indeed. But first, let's jump down on the live servers to Clifts of Shadows, one area which hasn't changed all that much at all, nor would you expect to. And to be perfectly honest with you, I like that. Because for all of its show, all of its change, all of its bravado that the current version of Orgrimmar has, jumped to Classic, and its underbelly is pretty much the same. Does that mean to say that the heart and the core and the soul of the Horde intrinsically will always remain the same? I could be looking much, much deeper into that. But it is nice to see just the simplistic changes which have been brought to these areas. So let's return to the surface now, and Valley of Wisdom on the live servers is my favourite part of Orgrimmar, mainly because there's lots going on here. We've got trees, we've got a bit of grass, we've got some flowing water, we've got a nice little bridge, we've got the wonderful totems, and then we've got the huts for the torrent at the back. But in Classic, this was the heart of Orgrimmar. This is where Thrall's hold was. And so we have this much, much different Valley of Wisdom. We just got a bog standard building on the left-hand side. But on the right, yes, that is actually the skull and the armour of Manaroth attached to a tree. A tree which very cleverly looks like a pit lord itself. And yes, those tusks on the skull are the tusks that Garrosh wears as his armour. But as we push into the hold now, look at this place. This is far more elaborate than what we have now, which is a very small, pokey area. And even coming into the main room, it's vast in size. And I recall multiple fights against the Alliance in here when I was Horde. Poor little Vol'jin, by the way, squirreled at the back as the Echo Isles weren't in the hands of the Darkspear. And then finally, we have the Valley of Honor. And on the live servers again, we have the imposing architecture which Cataclysm brought to the world. And much more buildings closely packed together. Although there is a little bit more open space on the live version here. Probably mainly thanks to the little Pandaren area that we've got down there. Probably the first and only time you'll ever hear me thank Pandarans. And of course the water, which runs through it as well, just breaking up the sort of barren nature of this place. And of course there we had the arena, and it all leads to an exit out of Orgrimmar, which goes into Ashara. Something which Classic never had. There was no back on Orgrimmar in these days, just like Stormwind never had a harbour in Classic either. And again, set out much differently, but I think much more invitingly as well. And there seems to be more ground level verticality, as opposed to the verticality where you have in the lifts on the current version. I just think it's much more inviting and much more welcoming to everybody that comes here. And how could I leave this video without, of course, going to the arena. This is the arena on Classic, which you can go in, and it wasn't instanced, and this is what we have inside. I think many people will be excited just to see it, more than anything, just to see the old Classic arena that we had. And there you go. There are some of the changes, not all, some of the changes to expect when Classic Orgrimmar comes around. So I can't think of any other fitting way to end the video than by watching some guy dancing on top of the postbox outside of Orgrimmar Bank in Valley of Strength. So yeah, it's me. So I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media and Twitch for live streaming. Links, they're in the description down below, and I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care, everybody. Bye for now.